doing? Because you've got this exciting adventure coming up that you're launching, and some of it's virtual. And I think if I understand correctly, you do live events as well. So you really reach out to the community and you're going through a change and a transformation, and you're going to take people with you. What does that look like? Go ahead and share with our audience what you're doing and how you're doing it, and we'll get into some Q&A.
Well, fantastic. Portia, you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Parshell Oshimati. It is an early West Coast morning, but we are so grateful to be here. I myself come from a background of education and media production. And so over the last decade, I've been supporting experts in leveraging their expertise. And so mainly been doing that in a one-to-one fashion. And what we're excited about, and I'll have Portia speak more to her experience as well, but us coming together is really about building this ecosystem for contribution-focused entrepreneurs. It's a very important distinction to us as we came together to create this space. And it really is for the entrepreneurs that are essentially wanting to do more good. I think that there's a big illuminating calling for a number of us towards how we can be leveraging our businesses to doing more good. And so Ocean Mighty Learning as this new frontier for us is really about putting our arms around those entrepreneurs in some really unique ways through learning experiences, through the ability to learn in community, and altogether, again, leverage our expertise in the world for doing more good.
And I would say, one of the things that my name is Portia Michelle Oshimari. I come to Parshell from the client experience space. So I've been in client experience and customer service for it's insane. I was sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, I'm too young to be able to say 20 years, but 20 years solidly of crafting customized customer experiences and client experiences. And then I've been the last probably 10 years primarily in the online business space, supporting people in creating and crafting their offerings, their services, and the experience around those offers and services. And so one of the things that I bring to this conversation is looking at the experience of what learning actually is. I think that a lot of us have this conversation that learning is information share, and the truth is, in the same way that healers never heal anybody, they create an environment of healing and then people step into that healing if they desire to. We don't teach really anyone. We create an environment for learning that activates learning inside of people to teach themselves, truly, especially adults at this point. So, a lot of what we do at Oshimari Learning is about this idea of new learning experiences for adult learners, primarily entrepreneurs and folks who are leaving the corporate space that are thinking about their first entrepreneurial experience. Those are a lot of the people that we speak to, Nicole. So I feel like we're in good company, but those folks are busy. So we're creating these experiences that are targeted toward a busy, active life. You know the world that we're living in, it's doing a whole lot of things. We don't have a ton of time to do a whole lot, but we have a lot for a lot of us as business owners to learn, particularly if we're wanting to aim our businesses in a direction where we're doing the kind of good that creates the kind of world that we want to live in with our businesses. There are some things we got to relearn and unlearn as a part of that, but we're creating experiences to do it in a way that you enjoy and it's not going to be exhausting.
Oh, yeah. That I love. Let's not exhaust it, because if you're working hard, then you're too exhausted to play hard. You're too exhausted to have fun,
Yeah.
and you're too exhausted to enjoy that money and that lifestyle. And then, when you're broke, and hey, I've been impoverished. I've lived on the streets, and I've been crazy, having fun, partied, and living low key, and then realizing, you kind of I heard that a lot, when you have broke people problems and there's rich people problems, but you think that these rich people don't enjoy or can't enjoy life, or they have issues too, but where's that merry mix? And I think with what you're doing for high level entrepreneurs, high level achievers, and going into that, it's really enjoying the mix, and then being able with your money as you achieve it. And we were just talking kind of backstage a little bit about this, is that when we get that money, if you take a portion of it and you share. I mean, obviously, give some wealth to you. Take a vacation, celebrate your wins, give it to your family, share with your family, friends, and your community. But then also, where's that portion going to? I talk a lot about for a cause marketing. I think giving back to the community is such a solution, and where we look at it when I talk to the executive director, part of the conversation that we had um, often and almost always is that with victims or with people, if they're in that tragic time and now they're switching into survivor mode, they're so stuck. And we see it every day, no matter what side of the fence you're on, it's just out of control that that trigger is out there, that people are not healing themselves and that they're angry and that they're sad and they are so upset and it's just toxic everywhere. And it's this soup, but when we come into it and we're looking at it from a lens of post-traumatic growth, what solutions do we provide? And that's how I started online and in virtual reality, was teaching people in virtual reality with some AI tools, was teaching the sales team how to make money, right? How do you, if you teach your customer, I wasn't teaching sales, but if you teach your customers how to utilize a platform or Zoom or LinkedIn, how do you utilize it to build relationships, have a community, make money, and get those gains, that return on the investment, that magical ROI? If you get that, then people will be more apt into it. Why aren't more people into virtual reality? Because it was so darn expensive for a minute and they didn't realize they can make a buck. It's not just a Gamersville. So when we're looking at that, so where what happened is that first event was in virtual reality, running a summit for domestic violence victims, bringing them to a stage. Not only that, it wasn't only to give them a voice, and gosh, what a way to do that. But the other thing was, you're never free unless you're financially free.
Mm.
But those that are financially free and successful don't necessarily feel free. So when you're doing this with your community and you're sharing with them, you've got intelligent people in there investing in their learning. And it seems like we're still learning and we're still growing. So how do you get people move kind of towards that? If you look at the triangle, I always go victim, survivor, mentor. How are you getting people past their survivor mode where they're not stuck anymore and they love their business, love what they're doing, and they're growing into mentorship where they're learning not just because it's there and they're not overwhelmed, but they can learn something and magically work within the community and the group that they're in and build that strength so they are successful and it's not just a one-trick pony.
One of the things like we can definitely speak to when we consider how we're reimagining learning for this audience is a couple things. One is uh, everyone who is a part of the learning having a clear understanding of what their contribution is. That's really key in this because, and not just contributing to other people, also contributing to yourself. And so being clear on that and how we want to utilize our businesses for good is really interesting to, and we feel like imperative to identify at the start because understanding what your contribution is, we call it your contribution map, really gives like a starting place for it. This is what I'm here to do. This is the vision that I have, the good I want to see done in the world. Here's what my unique design and my unique expertise and how it's wired to contribute is so essential. And that's such an empowering place to start from as well. It's kind of like coming through to see, you know what, I am a superhero here. I have some gifts and some abilities that can actually do some good in the world. And so just identifying that and being clear there is one of the things that we open up as like a first win, right? When you're in survival mode, to which all of us can relate to, small wins matter a lot. So if we can help the learning to be not something that feels like a fire hose, but how do we piece it out so that way we can give you the essential part of this methodology, of this body of work, such that you can get a win. And right, how do we make that happen for them? So that's one thing I would say as it relates to approaching learning for this audience. The other is really around the method and the delivery and the format, I should say, through which people are experiencing the learning. In other words, sitting down in front and watching another screen is not conducive. Right? I think that reports are showing even now that over 70% of entrepreneurs are neurodiverse, right? In whatever capacity that looks like. And we've all been affected by that. And so we find also that it's really important for the learning to meet the learner where they are. We all have busy lives. We're all doing other things outside of just being in front of a computer. And so one of the modalities that is really strong that we've been leaning into, for example, is audio learning. Audio is a way to actually meet people where they are. They can be in the car, at the gym, walking the dog, right? But be in a place where their body is moving, right? And we can meet them where they are with the modality specifically of the learning and making that very experiential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you want to add to that, Portia?
Something I would also add to that, and I think that just to kind of give some practical application in regards to, because we are people who create learning experiences, but we also teach people to create learning experiences. One of the things to what Parshell said is also thinking through when people are coming out of survival mode, which a lot of folks tend to be, making sure that whatever you start that first win on is actually centered on the experience they're having, not the experience that they may have in the future, but the reality that they're currently in right now. One of the things that we do with our circular learning model is that we make an opportunity for people to learn from these audio asynchronous opportunities that we create, right? We'll give you your training in something audio that you can play when you're with us in front of us live, right? Everyone's learning from each other. We have something to teach, but then we also make a point that they can see one another inside of the learning experience, which I find often is one of the things that people under leverage when they're teaching in group. When you bring together people from a variety of different industries and you hear what other things are happening in other sides of the industry, that's a drastically under leveraged tool when you're training folks. A lot of times people will get on a call and they spend most of the time talking.
Mm.
You really want to give the opportunity for the people who are participating in the learning to hear from each other, because you never know if the gold is going to fall out of your mouth or someone else's. I think that's the other big piece about adult learning and crafting adult learning experiences is realizing that everybody in the room is a mentor and an expert, as well as every single person in the room is a student and a participant.
So, so true. It's almost like our little 14-year-old girl comes out. It's like, oh, I got a mic and I got something to say, right? You get excited and you're like, whoa, here we go, explosive. But we have some comments here on LinkedIn. So good morning, good morning. Colleen Stubbs says, contribution focused, not something you hear every day. Absolutely, definitely an aligned calling. Absolutely, such you got to have that aligned audience. And she loves that creating a learning environment is so helpful in growing your business. It's like a step away from crazy, busyness, yep, of the world into clarity where you can actually focus, learn, and grow. And Natalia says, yep, that's right. There are things we have to learn and unlearn. I think we're in a learning. We're so overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but I think that that's what I'm hearing too is like everybody is become this keyboard warrior in the comments.
Mm.
But, and I think that's up to us to adult and to bring the action as good mentors to say, wait a second. Let's put that aside and let's come together and truly come together and meet where you're at and work this thing out and actually talk. Because if people are there, and I bet you see it in person, people are just a little bit different in person,
Yeah.
and you can kind of read that energy better. Sometimes there's a different place. People kind of relax. I'm going to a live event at the end of this month, and I'm so excited because not only is it going to be fun, it's going to be at a stage, it's going to be in Orlando, but I get to meet people in real time, people I haven't met. And so I love that. I love that. I love that. I get to give big hugs. I get to say hello. But we're so overwhelmed in this, when you're talking about unlearning, I went back to school. I went back to college twice. I went back to school. I became a beautician. I had this thing, and then I went back to school, and then I went to the police academy, which was fun. We got to go into Fort Ord. Talk about having fun. If you're an outdoorsy person, we got to go play at Fort Ord and repel off the impossible cities. It's a whole brick urban city. Fun stuff. But I realized that that wasn't the way it was going to change stuff because I came to people at the hard end.
Mm.
And because I was from the streets, I had learned that, ooh, That's a quick way to stop somebody in their thinking, not necessarily a good thing. That's not the way to change the world. And it got very political for over obviously in these last few years. But I coming to this other side of it, realizing that when we're in the community, we can make a change and we can be those people. And I love that you're saying, hey, as a teacher, as the wise person in the room, and you have this expert wisdom that you're going to share people, the only way you know that they're making a change is because you're listening with those ears that you have. And that is a beauty about audio, is I can plug you in and I can listen to you, and you have these great voices, that just the vibration that you have. And I think people have lost that too, is when you're talking, not only on a mic, but when you're talking to somebody, and the inflection in your voice, the
Mm.
tonality of who you are and where you're at. Like, hey, let's get real high and I'm telling a joke and we're having fun. And then, hey, this is something we got to lean into, right? So when you're coming back into that, um, and you're sharing that wisdom, it's the experience in those spaces, in it there's learning. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember, and maybe this is a Mandela effect, I don't know, I remember back in the day, you had to show somebody, you had to tell somebody something in learning, you had to show them,
Yeah.
and then you had to let them play a little bit and screw it up a couple times, and then you had to bring them back. And so what have we forgot? Why have we forgotten this? And then with the advent of YouTube, everybody's a super smart, intelligent, better than all the archaeologists, because I can read something online. I have never gone to a library. These YouTubers that never even go to a library and crack open a book past page one. They just go
Mm.
through the Cliff Notes for Dummies version of everything and never really look at the context of it. So when you're working with people, how do you kind of filter that down? Because there's a lot of unlearning, and it's hard, especially if you're over 40. There's some things that you have in your world, especially with those triggers. There's some things that you have to stop. Where do you, what, gosh, where do you start? And where do you get past and say, hey, this is time that we're really going to make that swift change? Because you don't want to be delicate with it at this age. People don't have time, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to be honest, I can start with this, Parshell, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think a lot of the people that we sit in with, a good portion of where we start is unlearning before we start learning. Because I think that, like, again, I can sit you in front of a YouTube video and put a bunch of information in front of your face. A lot of what we're doing is practical and on the ground. So it's like, okay, what have you learned about business that's not actually serving you? Oh, you've, been told that you have to have an oppressive business model and scarcity marketing is the only way that you're going to get people to say yes to things. Well, why don't we look at what communities really matter to you? And I think that for us, in a lot of our work and our learning, we start in the heart. And when folks can drop into that heart, and to Parcel's point, really get centered on the contribution and the communities that matter, then they get excited about the idea of how their business can kind of point towards that community. Then now we've got soil that then someone is coming to us wanting more information, right? It's that difference between information share and activating learning, right? And it's also really consent based, right? We come in from a place of what do you want, what can we unlearn together? Where are you wanting to opt in? What have you been taught that isn't actually working for you? How can we then put something else in place, which creates, again, this almost little vacuum of space that then says, yes, I do want to learn more. Yes, I am interested in what next steps look forward to. So we don't necessarily have to beat you over the head for it. You're asking at that point, right? We're in a communal conversation, which is one of those things I also feel like, to your point, we've missed as human beings, is like allowing adults to have agency and sovereignty and go, oh yeah, actually you're right. Let me drive a bit of my learning experience, right? Let me tell you, I need to see it again. Can you repeat it again? Can we hear three or four people ask a question a different way so that they're out showing us when, we want you to go skin your knees and then come back and tell us what's happening so that we can actually be in the reality of it. Because I also think that that's what a lot of people are missing from the digital marketing and the digital online learning space. Is like when I'm at a YouTube video and you told me to do it your way, and then I go do it my way and then it doesn't work, I don't have anybody to come and say, well, help me make a different decision. I think that is also the difference between learning and cohort that I'm just really excited that folks are coming back to. Because we are teaching in cohort, but we are surely not the only ones.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think, Portia, what you're also leaning into is the Five Eyes conversation. So when we look at learning as well for our learning experiences and for the learning that we support others in creating, we have this framework called Five Eyes that essentially breaks down the learning journey that everyone goes on, from not knowing who you are to being licensed in your work and you're innovating on top of it. And I bring that to the conversation because it's really important to map again the journey of where someone is. If someone's at an introduction phase, which is like the first phase of the learning journey, they don't need the whole methodology. Like they don't need, and oftentimes we're trying to give too much too soon and not really, as Portia mentioned, like being in tune with where they actually are and really breaking down what actually needs to shift from them being introduced to the next stage is actually initiation. So all of those things matter. We have to also pinpoint and understand where our audiences are and what learning experience we're creating matches where they are because we cannot assume that they're just going to be ready to jump in at implementation or ready to jump in at integration, right? We have to consider the full learning journey as well. And it helps us just again to pinpoint and make it even more tailored to the experience of where someone is.
It's so meet them where they're at, and I love the conversation of adults. I mean, kids, yes, that's the next generation. Need to leave a legacy. We forgot that we're adults. And I mean, hey, if you're going to Las Vegas, I used to work there in the casinos, have some fun. I noticed over the years though, when I got into Las Vegas in 2003 and then left about 2020, so it went from having fun to everybody seemed like a non-player character. They were so robotic, and I'm like, "You're in Vegas, have fun, do whatever, whatever you want to do." Everybody's got a camera now, so just be, you're on camera, you're performing. Just know that whatever you're doing, if you're picking your nose or you're running around half dressed, whatever you're doing, it's gonna go home with you. You're not leaving it here. What happened in Vegas didn't stay there. You absolutely shared it, and all the problems that you did too. Whatever happened in the club went home with you too. So, woo. But that what there is no kind of place, not necessarily safe, but comfortable because you don't want bumpers on everything. You want people to adult at this time where you can be comfortable in the room and not only be vulnerable, but just have a conversation, have a critical moment where you can not criticize people, but critical thinking has been lost,
Mhm.
right? That conversation, we may not agree on everything. That's okay. I don't want to. I want my own thoughts, whether they're my own thoughts for this 30 seconds or they're my own a different thought tomorrow. That's okay. It's the tradition of going back kind of to the mentor, the ritual, not the cult. And a lot of that has changed. And I think I love what you're doing because you're breaking away from that cult following mentality. And a lot of healers and a lot of teachers have kind of unfortunately fallen into that path. And that this moment, when we're going on and we're rising up, and what I love is like Billy Carson, where he does the woke doesn't mean broke. We want you to be healthy, happy. If we're going to own our ways into manifestation, we have to realize that there's actions behind it and be leaders and know that if we allow the abundance to come in, we should embrace it. That abundance means not only gifts and things that happen, events or friends, but it also means money, and it means that we're okay to have that. So we're okay to have those conversations and say that we have to be adult with our money, with our mindset, and come into these thoughts. So I think you're going back to some sense of traditional learning with the advantageous points of AI, and there is tech there. right? We're not hating on it because it's supposed to make our lives easier, but we're so busy tech stacking and finding all these things that we're so busy on doing that. I just want to pause for a moment here. I'm looking back on LinkedIn and YouTube. So good stuff. There was a win-win from Enlightened Enchantress on here on YouTube. And I just want to let people know that I have put this up, and it's also not only shared in the Voice Lab for the group, but you can now register. This is free. You can register to be a guest on a show and put your information on there. I drop the links on everywhere on LinkedIn, on Voice Lab, and YouTube, Rumble. It's all there. You can register as a guest, and there's also a registration to find a guest. So if you have an event, you have a podcast, you have a place to share, you want guests, and that can be free or pay to play. It just depends on your business model, but I just do ask that you fully disclose that there's a fee and it's not a surprise tactic for people. But let's get into it. So in deeper into the conversation, I really like to get into that kind of what do you think in this conversation, or what conversations do you two have that you think that people need to really know? What's that truth that people need to know about business that you talk about that you feel that you've not really had the chance, or you're working that out in real time, that people should, hey, what's that secret that people are don't know, or maybe even a mistake that they're making that you're here to correct?
Ooh, Parshall, you want to take this one or you want me to take it? This is a soapbox I could die
I was about to say this is your hill. Rather you speak
on.
to it.
There, how much time do we have, Nicole? I,
You got time, go ahead.
I could go for days, but I think, if I had to start with one, I think the idea of being a contribution centered business, I think that people believe that the only ways that they can contribute is with their money or with their time. Like I can either volunteer for a nonprofit or I can go give a bunch of money to a nonprofit. And those are the only ways that as a business owner that I can contribute. I think that that is one of the biggest myths that folks, and I think it is a part of the secret pain that a lot of us are living with. A lot of us that really care about the world are living with this quiet secret pain that we don't talk about, where we're consuming everything that's crazy about the world, but we are unable to be in action in the things that actually would move the world forward that matter to us. So there's this like quiet pain of witnessing and feeling like you can't contribute. Whereas I'm a big believer that in every single, particularly if you have a service oriented business, you are a coach, consultant, service provider, done with you, done for you. Even if you have a product business, where we forget that back in the day, businesses used to be known for how well they cared for the community. When we go back to like your great grandfather's business, and like let's say he was a carpenter and he built a table that could last in the family for generations. It wasn't because he was like altruistic or a nonprofit. It was a good business strategy to care for the community for long periods of time. So that, and he, our great grandfather wasn't broke, right? He was booked out usually weeks in advance to make these tables because everybody in the community wanted to come to him because of the quality that he gave, but also because of the care for the community. He said, okay, my community has a need. I go meet the need. I'm well taken care of. They're well taken care of. There's this like reality that we've been in that we forget that business can be that simple, where the last couple of years, all we've spent time doing is learning how to sell a business, not learning how to deliver something quality so that people want to have it over and over and over again. This desire for a cult following versus a desire for deep community care. That is one of the biggest myths and like the secrets that we've been talking a lot about is how do we unlock that with the person who's making a website and the graphic designer and the person who's consulting in corporate. Each one of those people have this ability to rededicate themselves to their community in a way that they feel is reciprocal and that feels more like alive. I am so tired of us leaving these big corporate places to then go be in a prison in a Zoom box. Like, enjoy it. You get to enjoy it. part of us not enjoying it is that we're not actually centered in the thing that lights our soul on fire and does the good that our community is committed to doing. You can build a website for anybody. Go build a website for the people who make the world the kind of place you want to live in. You can work at any corporate office. Go work at a corporate office that does give money, time, or effort or energy or solves a problem that actually really matters to you so that your time on earth feels like yours and you're actually getting to put your arms around the things that really, really matter to you. That's if I had to think of like one main thing that I think that people in business right now are missing, it's that. It's that apatheticness when people sit in front of me and they tell me I can't stand my business. I started it because I loved it and now I can't really stand it. I can always come to the root of that. Either we're not doing something big enough or we didn't commit deeply enough and you're not enjoying it.
Oh yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Well, that's so it. And I just want to say, Natalie says that she believes the labels are assigned to the human race, such as black and white, are unhelpful as we all are fundamentally human, and we forgot that we're here in our meat suit. I mean, she didn't say that. I'm adding to it. We did forget
Me
we're
too.
all here in a meat suit on a
Yeah.
journey, and if we are, we are. And whatever we're looking at, there's such a division. I mean, if I was on the street or if I needed a team in the casino to back me up, we were a team. No matter what trash we talked at the table and or what trash I talked on the street, I thought I was WWE of the street, right? I was a trash talker and I had fun, but I wanted it to come back. But whatever trash talk we had, when that hit that we needed to help, we came and we helped each other, and that's a community. So you got that brotherly, sisterly love, and there's some fighting in there, right? We can't forget that we're human. We're here having that human experience in our meat suit. But if we can get past that and start realizing that hey, we do need community support. If you are getting out of corporate America, why are you buying those box stores, right? Why are you buying a franchise? And I let people that are in business, don't hate. It's good to know that you can get a cheeseburger on the road at 2 in the morning or a taco, and we all need that because I'm not going to
We
the
all need a
taco truck
taco.
at 2 in the morning when I'm driving, right? But I love them. It depends on what state you're in and how you're rolling. But the thing is that we're going back to corporate America. The mom and pop stores, when the quake hit in Santa Cruz in California in '89, and they had all these wonderful little, it was kind of like a Haight and Ashbury, San Francisco at the time. They had all these
Mhm.
wonderful little mom and pop stores, and you can talk to people, and people lived in Santa Cruz for years, and there was this 4 levels of a bookstore. Oh my gosh, you could stay there all day, and they had great coffee because it was roasted right there down the street, and you could just read and you can talk to people and people had a conversation whether you were bathed or not. You just talked to people. Everybody had the same thing of a book, right? And the problem now is we can't have a conversation without throwing on the table the label of where we're going. Let's just have a conversation. And if we can get past that and put that back into the community. But what happened is once that quake hit, the kids got the money and they all put big box stores up. So many big box stores that we lost the skyline 2 streets over. You could
Mm.
not see the sunset, the sunrise. People didn't even want to, you had less traffic on the streets because there was less community. People didn't like the vibe there. And the point with that is that when we go into the business and we leave the business, we are not yet. Yes, Natalia, the reality of depending on each other has not caught up to humanity. No, but we're here in a time where we can come together and make that change and be that change. And those of us who are serving here and want to stay here and we're in service with our heart, if what are we doing with that money? What are we doing uniquely to bring back the community? You're just chasing the community away, I think. And I love that's what, I love about what you're doing is you're finding that support. And we have these groups and they're not collaborating. If we take our tech and we automate and delegate as a leader to the tech or to the people that we hire, that way we can come back and we can be that human and go back into having that time with those conversations and caring for our clients. If it's overwhelming, we can't do that. And I think that's getting back into the touch of your community and having those conversations. And when you're having live events, you can absolutely have live conversations. How does that change when people come to see you personally and they get to talk to you? They get to break bread with you. They get to have, whether it's sipping a cocktail or having a coffee, what is the difference in the conversation and the change that people are having when they're there one to one with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we are one to one, there is, and we actually just experienced this. We were in South Carolina at the Women in Publishing Summit with Alexa Bigworth. Shout out to that community there. There were a number of people that we had seen virtually and had conversations with, all the things. But when we actually got together in person, we got to meet with some folks one on one and meet with some clients as well. And it's just a given that when you can physically be in space with people, it really just opens up a lot more. And so typically when we are closer in community, for us in particular, we actually hosted Genius Games there, which is a learn through play group activation that we do that helps the group or the organization to identify what their unique genius is. And then we facilitate games that are curated for that group that they get to practice being in their genius and to see that reflected back to them in really powerful ways. And in that experience, right, we've done this virtually and we've done it in person many times. And to have done it in person, right, just to break that down, we actually got to, and it feels like a given, but our physical bodies being and moving around, right, to move from one group to the next and to easily go and be in community with someone, to shake their hand, to actually physically just be in community, it just makes such a huge difference. I mean, there's just you get to actually get to eat people, eat with people, and break bread with them, if that makes sense. And so there's just a more interesting intimacy that builds, of course, just being in person. And so that is one of our favorite modalities, is to be in person with communities. Um, and when we get to do that, it really opens up so much more. And it just points back to, again, the types of learning experiences that can be created. Our goal is to make our asynchronous, our virtual, to still have as much of that feeling as possible. So we intentionally make sure that those spaces have those experiences built in. But Portia, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I just laugh when you talk about like going from room to room. Like it's so funny to be in person. It's like I don't have to go into a breakout room. The breakout room is on the other side of the room. And we when we do in persons, when we do Genius Games in person, we break people up into like four different groups. And so they're in different spots. We've got a playlist going. Like we can come by and make little comments. Like I love the digital space. It is my home and truly have spent the last 10 years of my life making digital spaces feel warmer and cozier for the people who are using them. However, there's nothing like in person. There's nothing like being able to feel someone live. There is just, and I know, I'm sure, Nicole, you're seeing this in your world as well. People are craving that more and more. And I think we forget sometimes that when you can go to the conference, go. When you can go to the event, go. Go to Orlando. Be on the stage. It's different.
Right. I think that's great. And that it's we can make it hybrid,
Yeah.
right? You can make it hybrid for the people that aren't there. They can get a little taste of it, right? And that's part of sometimes in the summits, where we have plot twists coming up, you guys. We still have a room for a few speakers. That is for authors, not only people who wrote a book, but people who are looking for or have publishing support that want to share, maybe illustrators, public relations, things like that. We're looking to share with authors how they can get on the stage and speak and make, grow their community and not just keep it in a small space, because you should be out there doing your book signing. If you're not, or you can't get out or you don't want to get out, you can at least kind of do a little book signing tour by getting on summits. And we also have the authority code, and that's where leaders influence, and leaders share how to influence small groups. And I think that's what you two do so well. But what comes to mind for me on what you're talking about is, I think when you're live and you have a certain mix of what you're doing, there's a credibility that you have to keep as the facilitator, as the coach,
Mm.
as a consultant, as a person doing the event or the coaching, that it keeps you credible, because people get to see what's there and who you are. And they're not paying for this $20,000 package and 18 months of doing nothing but talk therapy, which they could have gotten for $15 a month on their health insurance. And it's turned, I see a lot of coaches have turned into that, where they're doing talk therapy the same. You're treading in bad waters, one. And then the other thing is you don't necessarily know what that person has if you don't have that experience. And if you think you
Mm.
just read something or watched a YouTube video, that doesn't make you an expert. Um, but it does give you a sense of building the expertise if you keep that in mind with what you truly know. And you only have to be a few steps ahead of the person that you're teaching. But how has that helped keep you two credible, especially in the dynamic that you have working together and being together? And the intelligence here and the humor and the love that you're bringing here, how does that help? I mean, because that's what communities need. They need the credibility. They don't need a carpetbagger to come in and fly in, and nobody really knows anything about them, and then they leave trash behind, right?
I'm gonna be honest, we are blessed. I consider myself to be blessed. I don't know how we ended up doing this thing called life together, but we happen to make an interesting match. Parshell is a teacher at heart. And so I always laugh because Parshell spent most of their life what I call teaching to the back of the class. Like everybody from the front of the room, from the very first seat to the back of the class, is being thought of in the process. And so it's very customized to them. And I am a person, I'm a coach by heart. So I don't necessarily, Parshell does all the teaching and the presenting and the like chronological order, because the way that my neurodivergence works, I don't do that very well. And then I do all of the like customizing. And I think that that tends to be the place, if I had to think about where our expertise shows up the most, it's that you can be in a room of 30 people, but when you get in front of me and we have a conversation, we're making it custom fit. We like to say, we make a fingerprint business as unique to you as yours. And we can kind of take what's there and really make it less plug and play and more, here's your personal situation, here's what's going on with you, here's advice that actually sits in your beingness. And there's something about being able to do that live that I do think is an interesting way of establishing expertise, because we would need to know our stuff to be able to take whatever you give us and give you a solution based on that's there. And I don't think that like it's not quite the same as when you are online and you have to teach to so many, like you're on a YouTube, let's say, for example, and you're sharing information, you have no idea who's sitting in front of you. So it's so broad and it has to kind of be so general. It's almost like going to go eat food at a buffet, like they don't use salt and pepper because they have no idea who's going to come and eat it, right? Versus when we're live, you can tell me exactly what's going on with you and what's happening in your world, and I can give you an exact response to that place, whether you're live digitally or you're live in person.
Yeah, truly. It's about customizing the experience as much as possible and personalizing that. That is the future,
Mm.
right? When we look
Mm.
at right now how we interact with AI, it is your feed and your chat and your relationship with your AI is very customized to you. And I think that that is, again, the future of learning and how we can match that to the uniqueness of the individuals and the people that are there. It makes a huge, huge difference.
It absolutely does, and bless you, Portia. So it absolutely does make a difference, and the knowledge that you two have. shines through. And when somebody decides, and I've had this happen, and I'm sure several of you out there listening have been part of this. I was in a breakout room, and we're in a breakout room for, let's say, 10 minutes. And in that breakout room, there's five of us. We're going 2 minutes, 2 minute clock here, and I'm keeping time. And someone comes in and they have changed their business in that 10 minutes four times. The model of their business, the clients they serve, because it was
Mm.
always everybody and anybody, and we were trying to guide them like, hey, it's my first time. Okay. So, who's a power partner for you? What's a group that works well for you? I mean, I have stages, so I love groups of speakers. I have stages. I love an audience that wants to learn and connect and that's aligned. And, that's my whole thing. These are people I look for. These are people I'm strong with that I can absolutely refer to. Or if I'm having an author summit like I am, I'm looking for groups of authors and groups of people that want to get on the stage and share their way cool story, do a spoken word, read about their chapter, talk about their journey, or maybe they have publishing support and a cool tool that they use. Those are groups that I'm looking for. And so we were trying to explain it to this person, and she changed her business model four times. And that first, that tells me that you can't commit because 10 minutes and you're already in a relationship with four different people. But the second thing is somebody's throwing hearts and thumbs up. I love it. And the second thing is that the guidance of we can't serve you, we can't share with you, we cannot guide you if you can't take that feedback. Find just one today, at least for this 10 minutes. Who are you serving, and what is your business? So that tells me is that I'm worried about that person. I worked in a boutique healing space in Las Vegas. I was finding myself, and I'm here where I am. Wherever I GPS myself, I found myself, unfortunately, right? That those times of your life where you're going through some healing changes. And I saw a lot of people, a lot of healers of all people, who brought a lot of toxic negativity to these people and were just doing more harm because they had not healed
Mhm.
and they were allowing everything to be in. And I think that if you're not in a good space, you are doing more damage. If you are not taking as a learned professional, as an experiencer, then you have to be able to say no and have boundaries. You're not helping anybody if you're throwing all this, this fake influence positivity out there, because we can all be in an airplane, right? We can all show those fancy cars that you don't have to rent anymore because you have AI. But keeping people real and coming into that and that knowledge that is power, absolutely, Natalia. And I'm probably going to mess this name up, but Shafayette, I think, is the name. Yeah, thank you for putting those hearts in there. Coming back to that in this journey, what would you like to leave people with that people don't normally talk about, that you are going to tell your audience, that you want your audience to know, to come with? Maybe if they have to clean their ears, right? Take the rocks out of their head, clear out the cobwebs. Maybe do your shadow work before you come. But what did they really need to come with to be an adult and to be able to fully be in that experience? So they're not coming with baggage.
One of the things I would definitely say is to know how you are uniquely wired to run your business and to be in joy in that. I've been on a bit of a self-discovery journey myself over the last few years, several years. And in that, every time I learned something that was pretty significant, it had a direct impact on how I was moving in my business. Everything from the activities that I devote myself to, the activities I show up to regularly in my business, as well as even the business model. This actual expression of Oshimari learning as a business is a step in a completely different business model for me personally, and I think for Portia as well, for sure. And what I mean by that is, for example, I learned some time ago through one of the modalities that we use that I'm a creative person. And I always knew that I was a creative, but there are certain distinctions that show up there as a creator. And I realized that, oh my God, like creators are really good at starting things, but not as great at finishing them all the time, right? We all have our strengths and weaknesses, but we're the ideas people. And I realized a bit earlier in my business that I really was drawn to other creators, right? But always sat around and wondered, why can't we finish anything? Why is this still showing as incomplete? We need other genius to show up here. And so once I realized that, it really helped me to shift who was around me in my business and the kind of support that I called on, right? I can, the ideas part I got down for now, but I really need someone to help me with these systems and someone that can help me connect the dots. And so that has been very transformative just to know that about myself. And everyone has a unique flavor, right? And how they're meant and uniquely wired naturally to show up in their business. And that usually also points to what kind of business model are you in? And I usually liken that to like the model of a car, right? Your business model might be a Corvette, whereas mine is a school bus versus yours is a SUV, right? All of these have different ways that they're meant to move and different features that make getting on the road and the travel and journey of business more unique to you and the impact you want to see happen. So anyway, I say all these things to say that in particular, Ocean Mighty Learning, I've shifted from a more of a consultant. I mean, we're still consulting, but essentially more of a consultant focused agency model, right, of a business to more of an educator model. And so that has also been very distinctive. And just again, there's joy that shows up in there for me because it's leaning more into my genius and how I show up as opposed to this thought that I have to do it all, right? And so we love that in the ways that we're showing up and the way that we're helping, we really are bringing people together, right? You cannot do everything on your own, and we need community, we need each other more than ever. And so it's important for you to know what your contribution is, right? And to be very clear in that and how you are choosing to do good in the world. And that will make it, uh, there'll be less friction involved in being able to collaborate with others, especially if they know their contribution. You'll be like, oh, we're here to help the same community. All right, I handle a lot of system stuff. You might handle this, right? That sort of connection and connectivity is really essential and key right now. So my little spiel, as I said, is to just know yourself and be on that path of self-discovery and know that the uniqueness of how you are is also to be honored in your business and how you show up in your business. Because to do something or be someone that you are not is not the game. That's not the goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Portia, any last takeaways? We're just about to wrap it up.
I would say, um, to Parcel's point, get curious about how you're wired and get curious about how your business can shift to make it more fun, more joyful, more delicious. Because when you're having more of a good time, you're doing more of it. And if we point that business towards some good that we want to see in the world, then you're having a good time creating more good. And is that not what all of us as human beings came here to do in the first place? And that doesn't mean that you go hungry while you're doing it. It means
No.
that your belly's full and the bellies of your community are full. We can get back to a place to we can do both of those things again.
100%, 100%. And I want to thank everybody for watching, all those people commenting on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Rumble. So glad you're here. You want to learn more about these fantastic people that are here today, these wonderful humans supporting community and not just grandstanding, standing on their soapbox and screaming it at the top of their lungs with a megaphone, but bringing the energy, bringing the experience and the wonderment and the love that they have. Thank you, Portia and Parshell. And I want to let you guys know before we pop off and we go to the end and the close. Today at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Colleen Stubbs, who she's doing From Tech Chaos to Control. It is a live masterclass. It is about simplifying, automating, and delegate all that fun GHL stuff that you never wanted to know, but you need to know, right? So she's going to make your life a lot easier. Also, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, your hostess with the mostest, will be teaching a workshop about 5 steps to lead high impact events. Absolutely. How to turn those events into the 3 steps of plan, promote, and profit. And you're going to learn how to create your own blueprint of success for the stage and your audience strategy and simplifying your tech with it and just getting to know that. We've got some wonderful things going on in the Voice Lab. And don't forget, register, be a guest, find a stage, right? Don't go ahead and register. If you have a stage and you want gloriously wonderful people to come on your stage and meet wonderful people like we had today, come on into the Voice Lab, and we're going to share the greatness with you. And it is just to start right now. There is a free trial of 7 days. It's $11 a month, and we are bringing more to the community. We are sharing with the community, opening up more to the community, and bringing some more master classes. We just had Laura Doman in there talking about boring keeps you broke. She made a little
Mm.
comedy and shared that enlightenment about being on the stage, being on the camera, and selling from that camera. And we had Daniel Andrews, who was teaching stop networking, start building relationships that last, right? All about
Mm.
true networking and relationship building. That's what we're all about, is building those relationships. All right, guys, we're going to hit it and quit it. We're out of here. Love you. Have a great day. We'll see you on the other side.